Jeff, welcome to the show. I'm glad you could be here in studio. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. So, I wish, first of all, thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here. Had I known that it was clothing optional, I probably would have made arrangements for that, and I appreciate you having me, though.
That's right. It's Jeff Kasky. We're on Facebook Live, folks, so you can see if he's being truthful or not about wearing clothing. It's on Facebook.com/Dean of Radio. So, look, I want to talk about, you're a lawyer, I'm a lawyer. We'll talk about some of the legal issues, some of the immunity Congress granted, what should be the laws passed to save lives. But we've discussed a lot of that on this show over the years. And what I want to discuss is that a human story. You're in a unique, not an enviable position, but in a unique position that you're a father and two of your children were in a high school on the day of this shooting, February 14, 2018 at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. First of all, how did you first hear about this shooting that day?
Well, I was at my office. I was sitting at my desk doing my work, as I do. And Cameron texted me. That's the first thing I got was a text from Cameron saying, Dad. It said something like, Dad.
Okay.
And I said, what? Or something like that. But then at the same time, I was getting messaged on Facebook by Steve Wind. Steve is the father of Alex Wind.
Okay.
One of the other March for Our Lives leaders. And he said, do you see what's going on at school? Like everybody's being so cloak and dagger,
right.
Dad, do you see what's going on? Just come out and tell me.
Right.
So I turned on the news and I saw, and I saw that obviously the helicopter shot of the school. And I was like, this cannot be good.
Right. So but you knew Cameron was, I'm sure you were still worried, or you didn't know what the situation was. Your son, your older son had texted you. How did you find out that he and your other son, Holden, were fine?
Well, that was my first question.
Sure.
Holden, at the time, didn't always have a cell phone on him. And Holden being on the autism spectrum and being in the special needs class at the school, it was crucial to me that I know that he's okay.
Right.
And there was no way to get a hold of him. Fortunately, and I hate to say anything was fortunate about that day.
I understand.
But Cameron happened to be with Holden at the time, the shit hit the fan, so to speak. So, if there was a silver lining on that day, or that part of the day, it was that I knew that the boys were together, and that had I not known that Holden was okay, it would have been unbearable.
And as a parent today, I don't have kids, but in today's day and age, is the risk of a school shooting something on your mind? Or I know we've seen it on TV, or it seems so remote that it's not really something you think about much.
Well,
before this, obviously, before this shooting.
Yeah, before this, it was. All right, so I have a background in law enforcement as well as some other things. So I always am wondering what's going to happen. I'm one of those guys who sits in a restaurant in a certain way.
Right.
It's a little bit annoying to the people around me.
Born identity type of Matt Damon eyeing people like, I know I can beat this guy up.
No, maybe not that extreme.
Okay.
But I'm not sitting in a restaurant with my back to the door, generally speaking. It's just the way.
My mom does that, and she's Sicilian, and I'm not even kidding. My mom, I'm not joking. We go to lunch tomorrow to diner. She goes, I can't. She repeats it 1,000,000 times. I can't sit with my back to the door.
Yeah,
because I'm Sicilian.
It's
like, all right, fair enough.
It's a mindset, and
right.
unfortunately, everybody in this country should have it. So your question was, leading up to that day, is a school shooting something that seemed realistic? And I have to be honest with you, I don't think it was. Right. I don't think I ever could have imagined. I know they happen,
right,
but it didn't seem like they would happen in Parkland. Because it's just such a tranquil, bucolic, safe community. There's 4 stoplights or 3 or something. It's a large area. It's a very family oriented area. I personally live up the road from there in West Delray Beach. My ex-wife lives there, and it's a better school district than I'm in. Mm-hmm. So that's why the boys go to that school. They can walk there.
Right.
So yeah, it was not something that I had expected to hear. No.
And when you found out, and how did you find out your sons were actually completely fine as opposed to being together? Was it through Cameron then on the phone?
Well, it was. I found out they were fine. They were fine at the moment that Cameron texted me.
Right.
And when I was texting Cameron, he was telling me what was going on live.
He did.
Oh yeah, he was like. He knew the name of the shooter before I did.
He recognized him.
Well, no, he didn't recognize him. That's the thing, is that we adults, old people like you and me,
right.
We don't realize these kids are all in touch with each other all day in school. by Snapchat and by text message and everything like that.
Sure.
So they're all communicating with each other in the school at the same time as they're communicating with us. First he told. The story is that Cameron goes and picks Holden up in front of Holden's class. At the end of the day, Cameron's still got about an hour left of his day. So he takes Holden over to his last class of the day. That's how it goes.
Okay.
Well, that's where Cameron was, in front of Holden's area when the fire alarm went off. And it was weird that a fire alarm would go off because they had already had a fire drill, and you don't have fire drills 50 minutes before school's over.
Sure, right.
So Cameron and Holden got pulled into one of the very, very special needs classrooms for kids with severe developmental disabilities. And what a lot of people don't realize is that sometimes when kids on the autism spectrum are nonverbal, that doesn't always mean that they're quiet.
Oh.
And the name of the game in this is you have to make the room seem empty.
Right, because the shooter's walking by and he'll move to sound.
Exactly. So there they are, Cameron and Jackie Corin. Jackie's now, I believe she's the president of March for Our Lives.
Okay.
I mean, she's 5 feet tall of complete human power. An amazing, amazing person. Anyway, Cameron and Jackie and Holden were in that room along with the severely developmentally disabled community from Stoneman Douglas.
Right.
And they were making noise. They were doing all these vocalizations and the things that they do for self-soothing type behavior. So, and then Cameron, because I've done training, I there's so much here, but
we have time.
I run a channel, a streaming channel called the Autism Channel, which is exactly what it sounds like, and it's available on Roku. It's free.
Okay.
And and I've done training with law enforcement and with schools and that sort of thing, autism related training, but particularly with first responders, to tell them how to deal with autism related situations. And this is exactly it. Let me give you the real life what happened.
Sure.
When the police breached the door to, which they had to do, it's a large school, it's a large campus, and it took hours upon hours for them to clear. But when they breached the door, the first thing Cameron told the cops as they came in, you're talking the SWAT team. Right. They're coming in with rifles and helmets and, night vision goggles and whatnot. But he said, this is a room full of severely autistic kids. So because it was the Coral Springs Police Department and they are great and they get great training and they listen, they understood that when they point the gun at somebody's face and say, let me see your fucking hands, which is what they're supposed to do, that now that they know it's severely developmentally disabled kids, they know what to expect. So if somebody acts unusually, something horrible doesn't happen.
Great that they had that training.
Exactly.
Because I can only imagine what could happen, because the kids are their anxiety goes up, and they might vocalize for self-soothing. They might vocalize because they're just afraid and start screaming.
Or just reaching around
Right.
and reaching in their pockets and putting their hands in their pants or whatever it might be. And in the perfect example is Holden had that day a teddy bear that he wanted to bring to the girl that he likes in drama.
Oh.
Because it was Valentine's Day.
Exactly. It's February 14th, 2018.
So Holden reached for the teddy bear, and what if some cop had thought he was reaching for something, So, and by the way, I was there a couple of weeks later. There was it's very hard to talk about some of this.
No, I understand, and I'm not trying to pry. I just want you to share, because people never hear this story from the point of view of a parent who had not one but two children in a horrific massacre.
Yeah. So a couple of weeks later, we had the opportunity to have sort of a reunion of parents and kids and try to start the healing process, which is going to be going on for a long time.
Yes.
But anyway, at the local public park. And I was there when Holden found Ruby.
The teddy bear?
Found Ruby and gave her the teddy bear.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Holden's in the room with us. That's why we're both looking at Holden. He's sitting here on the couch. So I have no doubt that your son, both of your sons knew some of the people who were lost. I don't even know how you console a parent who's lost a child like in this horrific manner. I don't know how they. I can't even think of how parents survive. We'll talk about the survivors and what happened last week, but even parents are surviving the death of their child in this kind of way. I mean, do you talk to any of those parents? Are you still in touch with them? Did you know any of them? And what's it like for them?
Well, I am in touch with them, with some of them. I could tell you that anytime I think that I'm having a bad day in any way, anything that happens to me, I think about Fred Guttenberg and Jennifer Guttenberg and Manuel and Patricia Oliver and the rest and the Beagles and just all I mean, I'm not going to sit here and name them all, but,
sure,
but every one of them. And I think, who the hell am I to ever, for the rest of my life, ever complain about anything? Not just because of what happened to them, but because of how they've reacted to it. You know, Fred and Manuel and Patricia and Jennifer, I mean, again, I could just name them all, but they took this horrible tragedy, and I think if Fred stopped moving forward, he's like a shark in that way. I think if he stopped moving forward, it would be a bad day.
Right, I understand.
He's got to keep going. This advocacy is his lifeblood. And Manuel too. That is one first-class human badass, Manuel Oliver. He's the one who does the murals, the paintings.
Okay.
And just amazing people. How do you survive that? I don't know that I could. Right. I mean, you know, we say that, but hopefully I'll never have to find out.
Right, I understand.
But their advocacy and what they're doing is the most important thing I can think of doing. I can't think it's so much more important than anything I've ever done in my life, what they're doing right now.
And I'm chatting with Jeff Kasky. He is an activist now, trying to save lives from gun violence. He's also the father of two young men, young kids they were, I guess, teenagers, now young adult, who survived the shooting in Parkland in February 2018. Your son is one of the leaders of using what was a horrific experience to try to save lives of other people of all ages, especially kids, some age, but of all ages. And he was one of the organizers of the March for Our Lives rally that took place a year ago this month. I want to play a clip of him. Matt, we're going to play a clip of him. And if people don't know Cameron Kasky by name, if you hear his voice and hear what he said, this clip went viral. It was very famous from the March for Our Lives rally. I'll play about a minute of it. It's a really good speech, but I'll only play a minute. Here's clip number 3.
To the leaders, skeptics, and cynics who told us to sit down and stay silent, wait your turn. Welcome to the revolution. It is a powerful and peaceful one because it is of, by, and for the young people of this country. My name is Cameron Kasky. Since this movement began, people have asked me, do you think any change is going to come from this? Look around. We are the change. Everybody here is standing with the future of our society, and for that, I thank you. My generation, having spent our entire lives seeing mass shooting after mass shooting, has learned that our voices are powerful and our votes matter. We must educate ourselves and start conversations that keep our country moving forward, and we will. We hereby promise to fix the broken system we've been forced into and create a better world for the generations to come. Don't worry, we've got this.
And that was a great talk, but don't worry, we got this. I imagine you're very proud to see your son doing that as one of the leaders of this movement?
Well, I have to tell you, pride is a hard word to use in this context.
I understand.
Certainly, it's amazing to me. That was one of the most surreal days of my life. You know, there are some estimates that say there are 850,000 people there. Certainly, by any estimate, there were hundreds of thousands.
Yes.
In fact, I think you could say it was almost half as big as Trump's inauguration.
Right.
Joking.
I understand, of course.
No, but you know, I've never seen anything like that. I've been in the live entertainment business for most of my life, and the thought of whatever, it's 600,000, 700,000, 800,000 people in one place was just absolutely incredible. As far as pride goes, Cameron's unbelievable. So is Holden. So is their big brother Julian. So is their little sister Connor. Mm-hmm. You know, and so are the rest of the March for Our Lives. It's really an incredible collection of. We used to say kids. Now we say students.
Right. It's a good way of putting it. You're right. Students.
Yeah. I mean, and there's no disrespect at all when people say kids. I know what they mean, but As an organization, 5 of them ended up on the cover of Time magazine, which is totally not even fair because the organization is made up of so many of them. Cameron's not in March for Our Lives organization anymore.
Okay.
He's doing his own advocacy. But the ones that are left, I want to say left, like it's like he left it in, smoking.
Well, some probably went to
ruins.
college or some change their priorities in their life, whatever it might be.
Sure,
they're young, things move quicker.
Exactly. There have been people who've moved in and out for whatever reason, exactly as you said, Dean, going to college, whatever it might be, or just sometimes they've had enough and they need a break.
I imagine.
They tap out for a little while and they come back. But they are all incredible. And I have to tell you, and there's plenty of proof of this if nobody believes me, but I loved these kids long before this.
Right.
A lot of these kids again, I say,
it's fine.
You know what
we
I mean.
get it.
We're friends with Cameron, for years. I mean, some of them, Charlie Mursky. Charlie Mursky's an 18, or maybe he's 19 by now. I think he's 18. 18-year-old registered lobbyist lobbying in D.C. Okay. Charlie and Cameron have been friends since they were, since kindergarten. Okay. Alex Wind. Alex is an incredibly talented actor and singer. He's been in all the musical theater productions with Cameron for years and years and years. I loved these kids, long before this happened, and have always thought they were amazing. Believe me, you got to shut me up. I could go on forever.
So we have to take a break. When we come back, we're going to touch a little bit about what recently happened with the suicides in there, because I think for people to hear about. I didn't even know survivor's guilt was. I had no clue what it was about. But then also want to pivot to your activism and how do we change laws? Some have been changed. Florida, they were very effective. And going forward, the goal is saving people's lives.
Don't be so sure Florida was very effective. We'll talk about that.
Well, and that's good. And I know it was a compromised package, but at least there was something. And when I talked to Shannon Watts from Moms Demand Action, she'll talk about our state successes versus federal, which is just impossible for different reasons. We'll also talk about the NRA and any dealings you may have had. We learned more today. Their exclusive reporting that the NRA was communicating with some conspiracy people trying to undermine yourself, not you personally, but...
Oh, there's plenty of that too.
So we'll talk about that when we come back with Jeff Kasky right after this break.
Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
to the Dean Obeidallah Show on SiriusXM Progress.
Shit, let everybody get that rally.
I'm with you. Welcome back, Dean Obeidallah Show. We're live right here Thursday, March 28th. I'm joined by Jeff Kasky, an activist to save lives, the father of two students who were in Parkland on February 14, 2018 when the shooting happened. Thankfully, they're survivors and they're there as activists, especially Cameron Kasky, who, if you don't know him by name, if you saw his picture, you would know him in a second. He's one of the leading activists out there. You know, in the last week, two young survivors from Parkland, from the high school, from Marjorie Douglas Stoneman High School, took their own lives. Cindy Aiello, who's 19, and 16-year-old Calvin Deser. And they talked about survivor's guilt. And I looked up the term. I got it in the context. And I looked it up, and a psychologist was quoted saying, "To when a person believes they have done something wrong by surviving a traumatic event when others did nothing wrong. As a result, they often feel self-guilt." Were these issues, like after the shooting, was there counseling for all the students that had been through this event?
You know, there was a lot. It's ongoing. There's different kinds. I mean, everything. I know that there's people that feel that there wasn't enough.
Okay.
Clearly, there wasn't enough for some people.
Right.
If there ever is enough, I mean, it's very difficult because, you know, what would make a teenage girl and a teenage guy just with their whole futures ahead of them, their whole lives ahead of them, everything in the world going for them, decide that the pain was so severe that they had to end their own lives without even talking to somebody about it first, you know? Clearly there was some need that wasn't being met for them.
Right.
What more could have been done? There's an answer to that question. I don't have it.
You know, from an outsider point of view, you'd look at it and think, you must look forward to life with such gusto now, going, look, my life could have ended, but now I didn't end and I can go on and do things. But when I was reading about survivor's guilt, people who go to war have this. People have been through traumatic plane crashes and they're one of the few survivors, and how it impacts them in ways I never thought of. So it's a real issue. And people need help. And you know, we've covered suicide on the show in the past. There are people who want to help out there. And if anyone listening needs help at any time, regardless, there are people who want to help. There are people waiting for you. There's suicide hotlines. There's family members. There's organizations that want to help people. But at times of great despair, you don't think like that. You know,
I guess not. I hope I never find myself in a position where I'm, you know, feeling that despondent. But I know I have friends, and I don't want to name names for their own privacy, but whose kids were in the rooms when one of the kids was murdered right next to them. Like they were sitting in the chair. And, you know, this is somebody that they're sitting next to every single day, you know, and they're probably friends with because, you know, it's a big school, but if you're sitting next to somebody every day, you're probably friends with them. And they got killed, but the survivor didn't, obviously, by definition. So, I can't imagine what it must be like, especially as a teenager. Like, would I, as an adult, even be able to process that? And how could you expect a teenager to?
Absolutely. And you think about it with veterans, and it's well documented, about 20 commit suicide every day. And I imagine
22.
20. Oh, that's interesting. 22.
I do push-ups in sets of 22
because of that?
And have for many years. Thinking about them.
And I imagine there's different reasons, PTSD, but intertwined could be survivor's guilt for some of them, you know, whatever the issues are that drive them to that. And we cover the VA a lot. In fact, last night or 2 nights ago, we had a member of Congress on who's a veteran herself, talk about her work. She's a freshman member of Congress from Jersey, trying to make things better at the VA for all the vets. So,
you mean what Trump said he would do in the first 4 days of his presidency?
Well, Trump's going to give us all great health care now. I can't wait for that one. Yesterday, we covered that at length, and the idea if you trust a serial liar to take care of your family's health, you're doing it at your own peril.
Since you brought up health care, can I digress for 1 second?
Sure, of course.
And get just slightly off topic?
Of course.
This is something I learned recently. Did you know that you as a healthy human being can give certain organs of your body away during the time that you're alive to people who need them? Did you know that?
Like a kidney or something.
Exactly.
A kidney would make sense.
A kidney, right?
Right.
You've got 2. You only need 1.
Right.
So I found out recently that you could do that. And but if you do, you now have a condition called like single kidney or something.
Oh, wow.
Okay. That is a pre-existing condition. Okay.
Of course. And then you wouldn't get coverage.
Exactly. So there is a bill pending. There's a bill, and it's House Resolution 1224. That was introduced by Nadler, and he's got, I think, 15 co-signers on 3 Republicans and 12 Democrats. sign on to this. That needs to become law. That's going to protect living organ donors from giving their organs away to people who need them. Don't you think? Of course you do, Dean. We're here on the Progressive Channel.
Sure.
But anybody out there, please call in right now or just open your window and scream out your window if you think that people should not be encouraged to donate their organs if they can.
I mean, this is the same administration that was cutting $18 million to Special Olympics kids until just moments ago, about an hour ago, after 3 days of defending the cuts of $18 million, the entire contribution of the U.S. government to Special Olympics. They were so shamed, Trump just reversed course on it.
No way. I hadn't heard that.
Literally, it happened like
Breaking
an hour ago.
news.
And this
Holden's
is what we
a
do.
Special Olympian.
Oh, wow. What sport or what?
Where you're playing basketball and what else?
Basketball.
Track and field?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
All
right.
great.
Track and field.
So they're going to give the money. And after 3 days of defending it and setting Betsy DeVos out there and defending it, because the tax cut for corporations, the wealthy, we had no more money for Special Olympians. So let's talk about something. The Huffington Post had a story today that an official with the NRA was corresponding with prominent Sandy Hook conspiracy guy to call into question the school shooting at Parkland, where your two sons survived the shooting and 17 other children were killed. What was your reaction to seeing the NRA was literally communicating with conspiracy theory people to simply undermine the story that somehow Parkland was not real, it was a hoax?
Let me try as hard as I can to put on my most surprised face. Hang on. How was that?
You can't see it, folks, but it's a great
where's
surprise
the camera?
face. It's over there, the surprise face.
I'm so surprised.
Jeff Kasky giving you a surprise face.
As sarcastically as humanly possible, so surprised. You know, here's what happened. The NRA has a troll farm of people who crank out propaganda, but not only do they crank out pro-NRA messaging, anti-liberal hysteria, etc., but they also go for obfuscation and lies. All right, and this is proof of it. They just got caught.
Right.
They got caught. What they were trying to do was start a conspiracy that this was some government, democratic, deep state government conspiracy.
Right.
Do I sound like
Alex
Rush?
Jones or Rush or
That was
Alex
supposed to be
Jones, a
Rush.
combination there.
Yeah. To come and have an excuse to take your guns away. Guess what? Please, I know that this is a progressive channel. There must be some people listening who think or suspect that even perhaps the so-called liberals are coming to get their guns.
Oh, they do. They call.
Yeah,
We discussed this a lot.
Is it that they want to think?
It was the first step to take their guns. And having a register with everyone who owns a gun, the same way we have like everyone has a driver's license.
Yeah.
And if we take their names and one day the government's going to come and take their guns away. If I had the conversation with people who seem sane, who truly deeply believe this.
Okay, and that's a logical fallacy called slippery slope.
Right, exactly.
Right? So let me try as hard as I can to dispossess anyone who believes that of those notions. Let me start by saying this, and I'm saying this for credibility's sake. Guess what? I'm not a Democrat.
Okay.
Okay, I'm no party affiliation. I believe what I believe in. I don't need any party to tell me how, which side to be on. I think that's dividing our country the way that politics has recently is detrimental. And I think I was a registered Democrat for the first few years of my adulthood, and then I became no party affiliation. Now, with that said, to be honest, because look, we're here talking to each other, I'm not going to lie, I've never not voted Democrat.
Okay, fair enough. And you can stay.
But it's not because of the D.
Right.
It's not because of, so that's one thing. The other thing I want to say is that I'm a gun owner. I've had guns probably since I was 18, 19 years old. As a certified police officer in the state of Florida, guess what? It kind of comes along with the territory. Sure. I have nothing against adult, reasonable, responsible ownership of guns. And taking anybody's guns away. We don't want to take people's guns away. We have no problem with adult, responsible gun ownership.
So what is the goal then of Families versus Assault Rifle PAC that you're the president of?
We're not even trying to ban assault rifles.
No, that's interesting. You're not.
Isn't that crazy?
It's not crazy, but it's less expected. I thought you were going to say we were going to ban them.
Originally, that was my knee-jerk reaction. Okay. Our executive director, Matt Goad, very savvy political operator, and I don't mean that in the negative sense. I mean, he's a smart guy. did some research and realized, we've got a National Firearms Act of 1934. There's a reason you can't go and buy a machine gun or a bazooka or a tank or a grenade.
Right.
Okay. Because they're in the NFA of 1934. We want assault rifles to be in the NFA of 1934. You'd be able to buy one. You'd be able to buy an assault rifle. You would just have to go through a very rigorous process that would prevent, let's say, for example, a very mentally ill teenager from walking into a gun store, putting cash down, walking out with an assault rifle. Okay, and there's going to be people calling in, losing their minds. There's no such thing as an assault
way, because it's hard to define. For me, they would define it in a long passage.
There's bills pending where it's defined in the bills, and they all know what it is.
Right,
okay,
exactly.
I mean, start with high capacity magazines and barrel cooling, etc. I mean, it's just whatever. I'm not going to sit here and go through it.
Sure, no, I understand.
But so that's what happened in Parkland. Is a very mentally ill teenager went in and legally bought an assault rifle. And we all know the rest of that story. As Cameron, my son Cameron, is fond of saying, or is known, he's probably not fond of saying it, but he's known for saying it. And that is, if he had to go to any type of counseling, to meet with any type of counselor of any kind in order to buy that gun, they wouldn't have given him a gun. They'd have given him a straitjacket.
Right.
Because if you look at that kid's history, he was a very disturbed child. But he bought that gun legally.
Yep.
Okay, so raise your hand out there right now if you think that mentally ill people should be able to buy. I mean, when I say mentally ill, I don't mean somebody with anxiety. I don't mean somebody with a run. We're all mentally ill. I mean,
we know the law is that you have to be institutionalized. If you're not institutionalized, that you're not at the point under our federal law as it stands, is written right now, barred from buying a gun. You literally had to be institutionalized either voluntarily or by a court ordering you to go in. Barring that, and I know there's concerns, because people who are mentally ill tend to be the victims of violence, not the perpetrators of violence. So there's this idea of being fair in this, and I get it. But what about like the red flag laws that people talk about, which they did pass in Florida? And I'm looking at this. It's called the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Act that passed in Florida, and they called it comprehensive. It raised the age to purchase a gun and bump stocks, and allows law enforcement, with the approval of a judge, to bar a person deemed dangerous due to mental illness from owning a gun for up to a year. There was not a red flag thing? The third one, was that? It's not really the same? Because red flag is, my understanding is family members or someone reports you to the authorities, then go to your house and take the gun away from you.
All right, so we've got a few things to unpack.
Sure, go ahead.
That we're talking about. First of all, Lex Scott are stooges of the NRA. Okay, they've received untold millions of dollars in NRA welfare.
Right.
Somebody's going to get mad and say it wasn't millions, it was 900,000.
Right.
But so Rick Scott was the governor at the time that happened, and for that reason, I don't trust the legislation. I am absolutely certain that Marion Hammer. And by the way,
and who's Marion Hammer?
I'm going to tell you, when I say this, I'm not saying I have evidence of it. Okay, but knowing how Florida works, and knowing how the NRA works, and knowing Rick Scott and the way he's behaved himself throughout his tenure as governor of Florida, with that in mind, there's no doubt in my mind that Marion Hammer, who is the Florida lobbyist for the NRA. Okay, past president of the NRA. She's an older lady who is a ghoul. If you look up the term ghoul, they feast on the flesh of the dead. Okay, she's a ghoul. Her messaging to the legislature, her private emails to legislators have come out, and right. She's just one of these NRA fists, iron fists, who uses language to threaten these legislators. You're not going to get any votes in your district unless you do it my way, and that's why the NRA owns Florida, because of Marion Hammer, okay, who, by the way, sues people for disparaging her. So,
wow,
yeah.
She's listening.
Look it up, please.
I don't doubt you. So how difficult when you were fighting the battle?
The lobbying arm, marketing arm of the Gun Manufacturers Association of America. I mean, not literally, but actually.
I understand. Yeah, they are.
Yeah. So their agenda is sell as many weapons as possible. Now people are going to say they don't sell any guns. There's no gun store in the NRA. Jerk off or whatever.
Right.
And by the way, these are all literally.
Glad you heckled yourself.
These are things that people tweet and email me all day. This is not hypothetical. So, but the NRA is a partner in these gun sales. They make money off of gun sales. So their agenda and their role is to do whatever they can in any way possible to make it easier to buy guns.
Sure.
And this whole arming teachers thing is the worst idea ever. But you had asked me about red flags, and I want to tell you, when I first heard about the red flag laws, I thought they were a horrible idea. Just don't like them. But I understand and respect them a little bit more. The reason I thought they were a horrible idea is that, again, with a background in law enforcement as I have, I would not want
armed.
Exactly, and that you need to take all his guns away. Like, that's not a good call.
And right, you're a law enforcement veteran, and so I can imagine you actually personally think about what that would entail showing up at someone's house.
I don't want to overstate my law enforcement experience. I've always been a reserve. I'm fully certified. I went to the full police academy, but I've never worked full time. It's always been volunteer work. But fully again, not
Sure.
mall cop. No offense to mall cops, but you know what I mean.
So the red flag law. So in theory, for our point of view, it sounds actually good. If a family members are very concerned about you, certain states they've enacted it now, you call the cops. But look, it's going to be. This is not the way it completely ends to save lives. We got to take a break. We're going to come back with more of Jeff Kasky here. He's an activist to save lives. 2 of his sons survived the shooting in Parkland, Florida, at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in 2018. Let's take a break. Come right back.
Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 127. New perspectives, important voices, influential ideas. This is the Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
And welcome back, Dean Obadala Show. We're live right here Thursday, March 28th. I'm here with Jeff Kasky, father of Cameron Kasky and Holden Kasky, 2 young students who survived, thankfully, the shooting in Parkland, Florida in February 2018. We're talking about how we're kind of to take everyone's guns Kendall's on hold. Kendall, we're taking your gun. He's a conservative who loves guns. He calls all the time about guns. So we don't have time, Kendall, though, to take your call. We have a few more minutes
What
here.
kind of guns does Kendall have? Because I'll come and take them, and I don't want to know what I'm going to get.
There's no. Well, you've got to fly a black helicopter to where they live. Then you jump down with guys all like in ninja outfits and then steal their guns. That's what you have to do. It's
but if
something
he's
like that.
wearing his tinfoil hat, then I can't see
He
him
doesn't
from
have to. No. Kendall's not like that, and nor are most of the Trumpers who call up and love guns. They're not where you're like, these are nuts. No, they're reasonable, rational people who love guns. Have heard every argument about guns.
Dean, I have the most ridiculous gun.
What do you have?
I have several, but one of them's called a.
1 second, sorry, we're in break and I don't know why.
What?
I had no idea why.
It says the mic's on.
The mics are on. You can kill the mics.
So are we in a double?
The Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress 127.
And welcome back, Dean Obadala's show. We're live right here, Thursday, March 28th. Everything's good, Matt? I think so. All right, we're talking about Matt. So we have Jeff Kasky still here, activist to save lives from gun violence, my friends. So, Jeff, you want to touch about, we have about 7-8 minutes. What is head count? You were mentioning this.
All right, so there's a few things I want to get to before we close up. One of them is head count. Head count is an amazing organization. They're nonpartisan. What they do is they register voters, young voters, old voters, anybody who's not registered.
Great.
Head count. It's headcount.org. You'll see them on the road, particularly with musical acts. The organization was started by Mark Brownstein, who's Brownie, known as Brownie, is the leader of a band called the Disco Biscuits. Great band.
Okay.
So I and also Bob Weir's on the board from the Grateful Dead, etc.
Bob Weir.
So whenever you see me in any picture like the one on the screen right now, wearing that button that says vote.
Oh, it's got the Grateful Dead.
Exactly.
Little, yeah.
Exactly. So that's head count.
Okay.
Head count's important. I mentioned Fred and Manny, and I really want to mention their organizations. Orange Ribbons for Jamie. Jamie is Fred and Jennifer Guttenberg's daughter, who passed away at Stoneman Douglas that day.
Mm-hmm.
Orange Ribbons for Jamie is Fred does incredible work. Incredible work. He's putting himself out there. In very precarious situations, and his advocacy needs to be funded just like everyone else. as well as Manny's. Manny's changed the ref. Change the ref. It's probably changetheref.org, but you can look for it. And the change the ref is, Manny and his son Joaquin, who was killed on that day, they were together. They were big sports fans. And Manny's thought was that the NRA owns our government. They own the politicians. They own the GOP. And when the ref is on one side or the other, you got to change the ref. Our legislators are supposed to be the mediators or the referees they're supposed to bring us laws that keep us safe and bring us forward and progress the country. But they're not. So that's changed the ref. Then I also want to just mention Families versus Assault Rifles PAC.
Right.
It's donate17.org, or if you happen to be driving, if you text the word safety to 9900099000, just text the word safety. It'll bounce back with our website. We are 100% volunteer. I'm not getting paid. Nobody's getting paid. We need donations for the hard costs of our advocacy, for our website, for the stuff that we do, the travel to do the things that we do. Nobody's getting paid. So we have been called to do this. I've been talking about the NRA and the problem with the NRA and how they run the GOP in this country for a long time. But talking about it and posting memes and posting, sending tweets, etc., that's not the answer to this. That helps.
Right.
That helps.
Sure.
Because people
raise
need
awareness.
to know.
Right.
Exactly. But for the people who are at home and all of a sudden the news comes on and says there's another school shooting, there's a shooting at a video game conference, there's a shooting at a yoga studio, at a movie theater, or any of these things, and they say, God, somebody's got to do something about this. This is just enough already. Enough already. Well, we're the people who are doing something about it.
That's great.
And that you've got to be on our team. You've got to be on our team.
Right.
Whether that means go out and talk to your legislators and make sure that you know what their policies are, or contribute to an organization like ours, or like any of the ones I just mentioned, or Sandy Hook, or any of them, because the Giffords, Brady, Everytown, they're all doing this work, and we need them all. We need all these organizations to be working against the very, very rich and powerful NRA. They've got all the money, and we've got to beat them.
We have more people overall on our side, but we don't make this a priority like some of the people on the side of the NRA, where guns are the only issue they might vote on. And that's part of it. Also, the NRA is obviously well funded by gun manufacturers. So, look, we're in the middle of a 2020 Democratic primary for president right now. Forget the names of the candidates. What do you want to hear on an issue point of view from the candidates on the issue of saving lives from gun safety, from gun violence, so that if our listeners hear these candidates articulate this, like, well, that person gets it. These are the real issues. So
here's what I want to hear. I'm speaking for myself, and I'm probably speaking for a lot of other people. And that is, I want to hear a candidate saying, I don't care what the NRA tells me to do. I'm not going to promote this bill or propose this resolution just because the NRA told me to, because that's what's going on right now. That's what's going on. Literally, as we speak, the NRA writes the laws, they hand them over to the GOP, and the GOP, whatever it might be, including, for example, which I think we had discussed by email, the bill absolving manufacturers of liability.
Right, which is remarkable. In 2006, they passed that.
Unbelievable.
Protect gun manufacturers from liability, civil lawsuits for people getting killed by their guns.
Can you imagine if the auto industry got the legislature to pass a law that says that even dangerous vehicles, you can't sue the manufacturers? It's so anti-democratic. It's not even funny. But that's what's going on. So from candidates for 2020, I don't care what side they're on. I don't really care.
Well, you only have Trump on one side, so you're going to get nothing but hand out guns to everyone.
Unless they, who knows what happens.
Nothing's going to happen with them. So, but what do you want to hear from the candidates?
What I want to hear them say is, I don't care what the NRA says. I want to hear from the experts, and maybe there are experts that are NRA people.
Right.
But it's not by virtue of the fact that they're the powerful NRA. I want to hear from the experts. I want to hear from both sides and make a decision that makes sense for our country. There's a very, very bright guy named Matthew Deitch, who's one of the March for Our Lives founders, and he's a very hardworking guy, along with his brother Ryan. And Matt gave me the statistic that 97% of Americans, 97% of Americans think that our background check law isn't strong enough. They think that our background checks need work, etc.
Right.
That universal background checks aren't enough.
Sure.
Okay. First of all, universal background checks, don't even get me started on the word universal.
Right.
They're so flawed. And they were propounded by the NRA after the Reagan assassination attempt. That's who wrote our federal background check laws, my friends, the NRA. All right. So if 97% of Americans want stronger background checks, why don't we have them in 5 seconds like they would in any other country?
And the only reason would be the lobbying of groups like the NRA that are very effective. Because even after Sandy Hook, remember President Obama wanted to close what's known as the gun show loophole, but the idea of closing the loophole in background checks, we could not get Congress to move then. It could not get past the Senate, the 60 votes they needed, just to close that. So, Jeff, we got about a minute left. So again, what's the website for Families versus Assault Rifles PAC that you are the president of?
It's donate17.org or text the word safety to 99000.
Jeff, it was great meeting you, and your son Cameron's doing a great job. It was great to meet your son Holden here as well. And keep up your great work. And please, if you talk to Cameron and the other students, they've been an inspiration to an older generation who watch them and make us believe that we can change things. Sometimes as we get older, like, you can't change anything. Well, they did. And while not have passed every law they wanted, in Florida they did pass a package of laws, and they're out there fighting the good fight for all of us. So, Jeff, thanks very much, my friend.
Thanks so much for having me, Dean, and thanks for what you do, too.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it. We'll be back with more of the Dean Obeidallah Show. David K. Johnson's going to join us, and then talk about criminal justice reform with Ed Chung from Center for American Progress after this.